our speaker today, Adam Lewinberg. He is the president of Postal Advocate. We're the only mail audit and recovery firm in the US and Canada. We manage a portfolio of over 160,000 pieces of mailing and shipping equipment for the largest US companies. He speaks and teaches nationally on mail savings and industry trends. He is the former industry co-chair for the Boston Postal Customer Council, and he is also a member of the Mail Systems Management Association with certifications for CMDSS and MDC. He is also a featured writer for Mailing Systems Technology magazine. Adam also worked for one of the largest mailing vendors for over 17 years as the director of national sales for pre-sort, tabletop inserters, addressing hardware, software, and green offerings. He was also one of the top 5 account managers nationally, working with some of the largest accounts in the nation. Postal Advocate is not affiliated with any mailing vendor, so we offer unbiased advice. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about the future of mailing, and I really see that there's been a huge evolution that's happened, and we're going to talk about some of those timelines. But the needs have changed, and the needs have changed really abruptly on us as far as being able to react to this COVID-19 crisis that we've all been under. It's been 6 months now, and we've all been living in this sort of remote world where lots of people are working from home. There are many people who have gone back to the offices, but not holistically. We see very few companies where everyone's back in the office, and many of our clients have very little thought that they're going to all be going back, and those that are going to be going back in sort of smaller increments, maybe a couple days a week, or they're dividing staff so they can lower the traffic areas. So today we're going to talk about this new reality. We're going to talk about the challenges of running a business with this remote workforce, the evolution of shipping and mailing, and then what cloud-based mailing and shipping solutions are available to support this blended workforce. We're going to talk about inbound mailing solutions that support, basically being able to, how do you get communications to all these people that aren't working in offices? And we're going to talk about what's available from virtual on-demand mailing services and best practices and tips. So the new realities, many workers will continue to work from home after the pandemic. So in some of the research that we've done, what we found is there's reduced real estate costs. People love that. Happier staff with improved morale. So our company's been remote since we started in 2011, and I don't think it would be possible for me to get my employees to go into an office. They like it because there's less commuting, they have more control of their schedules, they have better work-life family balances. There were some studies that it reduces attrition. 95% of employers state telework has a high impact on employee retention. It reduces unscheduled absences. American Management Association, 63% reduction in unscheduled absences because employees are more control of their schedule. All this leads to increased productivity, better for the environment. We're all not driving on highways. We're not sitting in traffic. But the most important thing is, now that we've been doing this for 6 months, the infrastructure is set up for people to do this, like the computer networks, the web meeting services. People have some facility in their homes to work from home, and many are just not going to want to go back. And we're seeing that the news of literally many major corporations are all stating sort of the same thing. So with that comes challenges. How do you manage mail, print, production, output, shipments? How do you manage that when you're in multiple locations and workplaces? Some people in large offices, some people traveling in hotels, in small offices, working from home. There's multiple technologies, whether it's the different carriers, whether it's the different physical technology providers that are available. Very infrequently does anyone have complete data on what's going on across the organization. Usually it's very fragmented, that we find, and costs are increasing. As you move people away from mailing hubs, basically the cost to produce that incremental piece goes up. And that could be from postage, losing out on postage discounts, that could be losing out on efficiencies, that could be just postage costs rising or shipping costs. So first up, I created this chart. Don't hold me to these dates. These are approximate. It was the best I could find from a research perspective. But what I want to talk about is where we've evolved on shipping and mailing over the last basically 180 years. So postage stamp was created in 1840. I promise this won't be long, but I want to get to this point because I think it's important. Postage stamp was created in 1840, came to the US within a few years after that. Postage meter was created in 1920. Parcel register, which generated UPS shipments, basically it was a meter head stuck on top of a base, was somewhere in the 50s or 60s. I'm not sure the exact date. I couldn't find an exact date on that. The parcel manifest, which was this big scale that allowed you to print out UPS manifests, reports that got submitted, or FedEx manifests, came in around 1985. It was a scale-based platform. It didn't have that much information in it. Parcel manifests that were PC-based came out in about 1990, and it allowed through a computer for you to be able to print out and store your addresses and import things. Still very rudimentary at that time. PC Postage launched, Stamps.com launched in 1999. Them and Pitney Bowes were some of the forefront, or at the forefront of PC Postage. PC Postage enterprise versions, where you could store all the locations, where you could basically control all your users from one place, came in about 2007. But you had to basically install software on every individual computer. The parcel manifest, having that web-based, so it could all be in the cloud, came in around 2011. So you didn't have to basically have it installed on a specific device. You could be flexible in your devices. PC Postage being completely web-based, where you didn't have to have an application to install, came in about 2015. And in 2017, PC Postage and parcel manifest systems, web-based versions came together, and you could have them in one unified platform. So if you look at the last 9 years, 2011, with the implementation of making these things web-based, that I would venture to say that had as significant an impact on business, on the technology, as the previous 100 years. The ability to be able to do all those things in the cloud from any computer allowed e-commerce to grow at the level that it's growing. It allowed small businesses to get into shipping platforms. It allowed people to mail from home. It has just allowed a huge expansion, and we've seen it in the last 10 years, and that's what I want to just focus on, is how drastic that change is to make people's lives easier around this. Now, the adoption rates on some of these technologies aren't where they need to be, but the technology is there to support the users, and that's what I think is important. So mailing and shipping remotely, these are the things you need to look for in your technology options. So solutions need to access information electronically through the cloud. The cloud is really the only solution, because most medium to large organizations have IT departments that the last thing they want is software applications installed on every desktop. So the only way to deploy these things quickly and efficiently is to make them cloud-based. They need to send mail and packages from any computer. They need to control where items print and the way recipient receives the information. So is it print, email, fax, text? We need to control incoming mail, including how to electronically route incoming items to the right department and recipient. Solutions need to be simple to implement, to maintain, with limited to no IT resources, and the ability to control the users and have visibility across all locations. So those are sort of the core requirements in these web-based remote mailing and shipping options. But what they have to have in order to be successful and in order to be justified is they have to have a positive return on investment. And all these solutions can have that based on your specific scenarios. And we'll talk about the specifics of what causes these systems to save money. Okay. First up, before we go into any detail, Before we go into any more detail, let's talk about what does the post office have for free? Before you need to go buy any technology and implement any solutions, let's start with what the post office offers. So if you need stamps distributed to your locations, you can order them on USPS.com. And it's $1.30 for shipping and handling. It takes 5 to 7 days for delivery, and you can have stamps ordered. You'll have to pick the specific denominations ahead of time. It's not necessarily flexible for people's custom use, and there isn't an enterprise tool, so people have to go in there individually. There is the ability to order stamps and have them shipped to your door from the Postal Service. You can order mailing and shipping supplies for free. So if you need priority mail boxes and envelopes and things like that, for free, the post office will ship them to you. They have a system, if you're logged into USPS.com, they have a system called Click and Ship. So if you want to generate 4x6 shipping labels online, you can do it through Click and Ship. You can link your credit card and you can import address lists, and you can ship one at a time. It has the ability to do that. You get retail rates. We're going to talk about the electronic, the commercial rates in a minute, which the other systems are going to have, which are about 10 to 20% less from a postage perspective, but retail rates and the capabilities to do this are at USPS.com. They have a system called Everyday Direct Mail. So if you're sending mail to a targeted area, where you want to blanket everyone in a specific zip code or block or things like that, they can do that. You don't even need address labels. You basically, put the criteria of, income, zip code, area that you want, male, female, and there's certain criteria. You have your piece printed by a printer with, specific like verbiage on it and deposited at the Postal Service, and you get very affordable rates blanketed to an area. So if you're trying to reach a local audience, it's a great tool to be able to use. They have a premium forwarding service. So if people aren't in the office, if people are consolidating offices, they have Post Office offers premium forwarding services where instead of just the typical forwarding where it comes in regular mail, pieces are grouped, sent in priority mail envelopes to specific facilities, and it can expedite where it needs to go. The Post Office has a gateway, a customer gateway, which is sort of your way to sort of manage all of your postal relationships in one place. They have expanded this to be able to pay for multiple different services, have visibility to multiple different services, and it is a great tool to be able to control your user environments for what the Post Office offers. So all these things the Post Office has, you don't have to invest in any technology. You can just go right to the Post Office, and that's what they do. Now, we're going to focus on PC postage. This is the fastest segment of the mailing industry in its entirety. There are more PC postage users than postage meter users in the United States. There's, I think 1.5 million or more PC postage users in the United States. And the reason that it's growing so fast is because it's inexpensive compared to postage meters. Typically costs $10 to $30 a month for a subscription. It's cloud-based. It can be accessed from any device. Easy to deploy, so within a week or two, you receive your login credentials, a scale, starter supplies, simple online tutorials to get you going. You have visibility to the history of package tracking statuses for every single item that you've done. Some systems have multiple carrier options where they can process UPS and FedEx, and there's significant postage savings. And these postage savings we're going to talk about, some newer postage meters even come with a PC postage component just to take advantage of these postage savings. So let's talk about it. Let's go into detail for a sec. If you're sending a 1-ounce letter, if you buy a stamp at the post office, it's 55 cents. If you use a postage meter, or PC postage, it's 50 cents. So you save 5 cents. But I've highlighted in yellow the savings of areas that are higher than with postage meters. So if you send certified mail, some PC postage platforms have electronic return receipt included with the platform, and that could be $1.15 per electronic return receipt plus any postage savings. If you send first-class parcels out, you get commercial rates versus the retail rates that postage meters have, and those are savings of anywhere between 23 and 55% less. If you're sending priority mail, you get about a 15% discount overall on priority mail, and express mail gets about a 12% discount just by generating the commercial labels, generating the 4x6 label versus just slapping meter imprint. It provides tracking and it provides a way to control it. Post Office offers discounts for these commercial services because they want to compete more effectively with UPS and FedEx. They want to be able to have an experience where you're submitting the address to them electronically, and they know what pieces are coming, and they can track that piece and provide the same level of data and support that you would expect from a UPS or a FedEx. That's their goal, and that's why they offer these commercial-based discounts. So PC postage, it's typically done as a subscription model, usually a 12-month subscription. You can print from any computer with an internet connection. The way they work is you would print 4x6 shipping labels on shipments, and you could either use regular paper and you could print and then tape it onto the envelope, or you could use a labelope, and a labelope are those envelopes that have a glassine window and you slide the piece of paper through. Typically, companies use those for overnights. You could buy Avery labels from your supply store, and 1 or 2 up shipping labels, and it will print directly onto those. The most common way is people use for postage stamps. So what they do is they'll get these sheets of stamps that they'll order from their PC postage provider, and at the top right of the sheet, it has a serial number. That serial number gets entered into the application. And what that means is if you print 6 stamps, then automatically, because the serial number is in the software, it knows the next time you go to print from the 7th position. And then if you print another 5, the next time you print, it would print from the 11th position. So it keeps track to make sure you can utilize every stamp on the sheet, and they can be printed multiple times. This is the most common that we see people using PC Postage. In some cases, they'll print a full sheet of all the same denomination, 50 cents as an example, and then they'll print their random denominations as they need them. You can print directly onto the envelope, so you could print the address, a return address, and the postage all in one pass. Some people will do large mailings that way, and they'll set up a file of 100, 500 pieces, and they can print the address and postage at the same pass. And then some people will buy vendor-provided label printers to print the postage. We see that as less common because it sort of locks you into that computer. The next iteration of this is enterprise PC postage, which is basically the same as regular PC postage, but you have central controls to manage. So how you can sort of centrally administer all your users. So what this does is it allows for simplicity onboarding new users, adding and removing new users, reporting on all the locations and users' activities from a central dashboard. This central dashboard gives you visibility to every single piece of mail that anybody did. You can manage the billing and subscriptions for supplies and postage versus having to have the individual billed at the location level for every site. You can control user access. So you can add users that are new, you can remove users who are no longer employed. Some systems have single sign-on capabilities, and what that does is it ties into your Active Directory. So basically, when you log into your computer, it recognizes who you are. You go to the PC Postage program, you're automatically logged in. You don't have to manage a username and password. If you have 10 or more locations using PC Postage, we recommend having this type of solution. One other benefit that clients see that we find in a lot of installations, we're managing today about 7,000 or 8,000 PC Postage licenses for our clients. One of the main things that our clients tell us is that it reduces theft. And because when people have postage meters, basically most people leave their meters open. And so when people run their mail, they run their mail and they typically don't have to log in with the password to their system. So anybody can walk over to that system and run personal mail. I mean, you hope people don't, but it happens. Also, cleaning crews, people who are working off hours, have access to money, companies funding. So the benefit of PC Postage is you have to log into it. And now, or you have to have access to it. So the system automatically knows who's in there. So every piece of mail that I generate is linked to me. And so I have a much lower chance of wanting to run personal mail through something where every single piece is being accounted back to me. And so between the visibility and the fact that there's much less chance of theft or loss, it's very powerful in that way. The next evolution is multi-carrier enterprise mail and shipping systems. So these are similar to PC Postage, but they have a higher focus on shipping. And so the main reason that people use these is the rate shopping that this provides. So you can have the systems tell you by time of day and day of the week, all of your options with your carrier rates and discounts all displayed for you. So when you're making a decision, people can make the decision of the lowest cost option. Now, in some cases, this is deciding between the post office and UPS or FedEx, but in a lot of cases, it's deciding between the same carrier. Most people use free carrier-provided systems from UPS and FedEx and DHL. And what those do is they do a great job in helping you with the best, most expensive services like your overnights and your 2 days and your 3 days, but they don't typically put ground service in the same place to make it easily visible that you could send this at a ground level, get guaranteed next day delivery for up to 250 miles from where you're going, and have that compared easily against the overnight rate. So they just don't make that visible. And so these systems make it, you can see, are the ground guaranteed? Are they going to get there the same day time frame, the same day as the overnight item? And what the difference in price is between all those options. So people on a package by package basis can make the right decisions. They create rules that can be enforced automatically. So some companies might say, look, I don't want everyone in my organization to do 8:30 a.m. delivery because it costs me an extra $25 per package. I only want that at a director level or higher for them to be able to make that decision. So you could create rules in your system that control that. You could have things, intercompany shipments default to 2-day or ground because you don't want everything that's going intercompany automatically going overnight and costing you more money. There's improved user management and reporting options, so you can really get very granular into the details of what everyone's doing. They can have enhanced single sign-on, so for your carrier spend in your post office, you can control all the users' access without them needing password management. But all of UPS and FedEx's free systems require you to manage usernames and passwords, which gets to be problematic when employees aren't there anymore. Is anyone purging through that data to add and remove users? And oftentimes it's not happening. And some systems offer the option to print postage stamps on the same platform. And this is a very significant change that I want to focus on for a sec because of what this brings. So let's talk about, in most organizations, it's easier for a company to send an $8 overnight item than a 50-cent letter. And so let's talk about why that is. So most companies use free carrier-provided tools that everyone has access to. So everyone working from home, everyone throughout their organization, if they need to ship a UPS or FedEx, has a way of doing it through the cloud. With most organizations, they process through postage meters. Some sites might have PC Postage. Some end users are purchasing stamps and have to go to the post office. There's no easy consolidated way to figure out what they need to do. Someone's working out of their house. They probably don't have any of those solutions available. So they make a decision, do I want to go all the way to the post office to order stamps, put it on a P card or an expense report, or do I just want to send it out UPS or FedEx? And most of them just say, well, it's easier, I have a tool to do that, let's just send it that way. There's a simple to use and define process across the entire organization versus most organizations have no defined process for how they force people to send things. All users can from any location, any time. This includes home office and traveling users. There's typically, the location determines how mail gets processed based on what kind of technology they have. And the majority of locations are going to need to drive to the post office. All charges are summarized by cost center, downloadable to Excel for uploads, and there's one consolidated bill that all the charges get wrapped up to if you use, if you use UPS or FedEx. With postage, if you had to send a stamp, there's limited visibility across the enterprise. Very few companies do we go to have any sort of complete visibility prior to working with us about what's going on with stamps and postage meters and PC Postage and have any sort of dashboards about what the spends are across their organization. It's usually a very fragmented process. So the point is, if you have these multi-carrier systems that can print shipments and postage in the same platform, people can make the right decisions. They can generate the 50, when they just have a document they need to send out with no urgency, they can just put a 50-cent stamp on it generated from a enterprise PC Postage platform. Or if they're doing heavier items, that same system can also print out the UPS, FedEx, post office labels. And we think this drives huge savings. Remote printing. If I'm working from home and I need to print a single document, maybe I want to print a mailing of 50 letters, maybe I need to print some invoices or credit memos, how do I do that? So remote workers are going to need tools to be able to manage these things. People who were physically doing those tasks were in an office, they're not in an office anymore. They're working remote. So remote workers are going to need online tools to print these larger volumes and documents to locations with the proper staff and the proper technology. This is done through virtual print drivers with customized integration for larger jobs. So we're going to explain sort of the concept of how this works and what's available. So there's two main models that you can follow for this. On-site production facilities. Like, do you have an on-site production facility in your company that basically your users could send those print jobs to, where you have staff, you have inserters, you have postage equipment that can get those things out efficiently? Or if you don't, there are professional mail service providers, outsourcers, that can do this on a per job basis with subscription level services available to do what we're about to show you. So how does remote printing work? So the most simple way it works is through virtual print drivers. And so think about this just to simplify it. When I am at my computer and I want to print a Word document, what do? I hit File, Print, and a dialog box comes up like this, and I would print and it would show me my list of printers. The way it works is they've interfaced to these dialog boxes by setting up these print drivers, and there would be a print driver, which, whatever service you use, on-demand print driver, let's just call it. And then once you click on that, instead of it printing the document, a pop-up menu comes up and shows you your document and allows you to control how that document gets printed. where does it get printed, how it gets printed. So the first thing the dialog box does is ask you to control where does the address show up, because it needs to know where is the destination address of that document. And so it'll have a window that you can move to highlight where the address shows up in your document. And that's important because its goal is basically to be able to not have to send this to a location and have every document print in its own way and have to move envelopes. The goal is to standardize the way these documents print so that when it gets to the mail center, they can print all these jobs at once. They can load the paper into the hopper of the inserter, and they can hit start, and it will fold and insert them in the same way in each document and have that consistency so they can get things out the door. So the way they do that is they have to control where the address shows up and highlight it. If the address doesn't show up within a range of where it needs to, you can either move it through the tools. Some of the tools let you physically move the address on the document, or you can do a cover. They give you the option to have a cover page, which is just an extra sheet where you could have the address on that document. The next is, are you doing any variable printing? And variable printing is, let's say I'm sending invoices and I get a 1-page invoice and someone else gets a 3-page invoice, someone else gets a 4-page, someone else gets 2. So the way that's controlled is there's you look for what is the variable item on the document that it's going to change between sets. So invoice number, as an example, is a pretty simple one. So when I'm printing my document, it has this invoice number. And when it prints the next person's, it's going to have a different invoice number. You highlight the segment of where that invoice number shows up, and so every time it changes, it's automatically in the documents. It's gonna put markings on it. So the way it does it is it puts barcodes on every page, that when it gets to the inserter reads those barcodes, and it allows it to insert the right number of sheets for your document into the envelope. So with this process, additional pages can be added. So let's say you wanted to do a newsletter behind it, an extra flyer, a price change, something. You could physically add that by just attaching sheets, like a special offer. If you do this invoice, all the time, this can be saved as a template. So the first time you set it up, it gets, you set up all the variables, and then the next time you don't have to go set up where the envelope is or what the variable marks are. It's just saved and you call it invoice. These templates can be rerun whenever you need them. Jobs can be sent to the virtual print queue where the central print area manages the output. So the central print queue is the central place where you print these, is basically going to have a view to all these jobs. And they're going to be able to control the print of all these documents. So think about this for a sec compared to the old way. So the old way was I email my document as a PDF to the mail center. Then every job, the mail center has to figure out how many pages go in each set, and they have to figure out like how they set it up, and they have to rechange the envelope layouts, where the window shows up, and they have to do all these things that make it difficult. And then there's typically no communication back to the user that the job was done besides maybe an email back. With these tools, it standardizes the way things are printed. It puts integrity onto the document so you can know the right number of sheets were printed. And it allows a communication loop back to the user so the person who generated the mailing originally knows what pieces got sent out. But the most important thing is it allows you to basically get your end users, wherever they're working, to get mail funneled to a central area that has the technology to do it. So the benefits of this type of technology is there's flexibility with output. So it gives you the ability to send things through paper, electronic, fax, text. There's integrity to it, and this integrity is a big deal. It places 2-dimensional barcodes on every page to make sure the right number of pages are being inserted into the envelope. And this is something, even if you just, some of these tools are great, even if it's just you're doing mailings that don't have barcodes and you're even doing it in the same area, some of these types of tools are great to be able to put these 2-dimensional barcodes. It's a very simple user interface to be able to allow for this technology to print barcodes on pages. They can do address validation. So they can validate that this is a deliverable address in the post office and it's not going to get kicked back. Mail moves faster through central automated processes. I mean, to have people sitting at home or sitting in small offices folding and inserting paper and feeding them one by one through a postage meter or whatever technology they have, versus sending it through this process, having them automatically folded and inserted through, high-speed printers and folders and inserters and high-speed mail machines, and with the proper staff that has the expertise, is much more efficient. You can have mail tracking capabilities, so you can track the pieces got delivered. You can track when pieces get out the door, and you can track the pieces physically delivered because IMP barcodes can be placed onto the pieces. And the documents can be archived for retrieval in a central repository so you can physically see what's gone out and control it. Most organizations without this just don't have a way to control everything that's been sent out. But again, postage discounts. By funneling mail from single processes to central processes, you can take advantage of postage discounts. So let's talk about what that is. A 1 ounce mail piece is 55 cents. If I send it with a postage stamp, it's 50 cents if I use a postage meter or PC Postage. If I use a pre-sort service and I can move that mail to a central facility who uses a pre-sort service, it's 41.9 to 46 cents. If I want to barcode that myself in-house, it's 38.9 to 44 cents. If it's marketing mail, if it's promotional material, it could be 26 to 30 cents. And if I'm a nonprofit and it's promotional material, it's 14 cents to 18 cents. So you could see there's a huge variance. The other benefit of these systems, especially when items get heavier. So the post office has a rule that anything sent through an automation class, which is pre-sort or first-class automation or marketing mail, is typically up to 3.5 ounces for the price of the 1 ounce piece. So if you're sending something for 80 or 85 cents, it's a 3 ounce newsletter or a 3 ounce statement, that would go for 42 to 40 for the same as the 1 ounce rate, saving you over 50% on your mail pieces. So if you can drive mail from single site production to single site manual preparation to production centers, there's huge economies of scale in production and huge discounts in postage that can be taken advantage of. On-site or off-site. So the things to consider is, do you have any internal production facilities that can process the mail for the field sites? Many companies do. They'll have either a central headquarters mailroom or they'll have, main production hubs that they use that could do this. Is there a risk of outsourcing your mail from a client and compliance perspective? So like, do things have to stay in-house because of HIPAA requirements or any other requirements that you have? What is the cost difference to in-source versus outsource your mailings? How is the solution going to be managed? Who will manage the day-to-day of this? And could there be a hybrid model where some mail's done off-site and some mail's done on-site? One place to consider for off-site is to manage disaster recovery or peak periods. So disaster recovery specifically, heaven forbid, there's a fire, a flood, earthquakes, and you need to get your mail out from a production facility. Sometimes these off-site centers are great to have as backups. Incoming mail. So people are working remotely. They're not in a mailroom. They're not in a corporate building for someone to deliver. So the typical process is mail sent to a facility. Someone delivers that, someone puts that mail in a cart and delivers it to the departments or sorts it into slots where people can pick up their mail. It's delivered to the recipient, and then the respondent actions that piece. So whether they throw it away or whether they respond or whether they have the key information, that's the typical process in most organizations. This doesn't work as well when you have people in thousands of locations because many of them are working from home. So the digital mail, and we're finding lots of clients moving to this digital mail model. And this is basically the way it works. So you have multiple document sources. So you have physical mail, you have email, and you have fax. So physical mail gets scanned in, emails get run through an email server, faxes get managed through a fax server, and they get consolidated into central repositories. Then, because these systems can do some OCR scanning, by scanning in the document, they know in a sense what they are. So they know if it's an invoice or a payment or something that comes through, and they can route things automatically to specific departments based on specific criteria that can be set up. And then other pieces can be forwarded directly to the recipient that's on the mail piece. That recipient can respond electronically to say, what do I want to do with that piece? Do I want to store it? Do I want to retrieve it? Do I want to destroy it? And they can manage that process all electronically on one platform. So this digital mail transformation, so it creates savings from the following. It reduces the delivery cost of that physical mail piece. There's a faster response to incoming items. Example, responding to customer requests for information. If that can be scanned in and electronically gone to a department, you can get to them faster. There's visibility to data and analytics about what's being received for improved tracking. Most companies just don't have a visibility of every piece of mail that came in to know what sort of their workflows are around them. Elimination of data entry of information because the data can be received electronically. So let me just give an example of a process. So mail returned undeliverable is addressed. So let's just use this as an example. So if you go into most large mail rooms, they're getting buckets of this mail with these yellow stickers on them that says undeliverable is addressed, undeliverable is addressed. And so what they typically do is a lot of times they sit in a central mail room. And in some cases they get like sorted and then forwarded to the departments that generate. And then those departments that receive that stuff oftentimes let them sit until they're ready to do something with it. And then they have to take these labels and then they have to basically key enter the origination of that document to make sure they update their addresses in some way. Many organizations don't even do this step, but it's all manual. With these processes, all the undeliverable address mail can automatically be scanned in. And then the data can be created into a text file that can be opened in Excel or in some program where the data can be manipulated. So it can make managing undeliverable address mail simple versus very manual and difficult process. So this is just one example of eliminating data entry. There are many more if you thought through it. There are two core models for managing and implementing these types of solutions. You can buy the scanners and software and you can run it with existing staff, or you can hire professional firms who specialize in this and manage the daily incoming mail operations, either from a central facility that they manage on-site or off-site. So what we see, like one model that's becoming very popular is there are these central scanning hubs where mail is delivered to a specific site near a major postal hub, and then all mail is received in. There's postal rules to have mail forwarded to these facilities. There's change of addresses done. Business reply mail gets forwarded to them, and they are scanning everything that comes in and routing it to where it goes. Or there could be management companies that come into your mailroom and they're taking care of this on-site on an on-site basis. All of these systems we talked about, whether it's PC Postage, whether it's multi-carrier shipping and mailing, whether it's incoming mail, on-demand services, the key aspect to their success is the central administration of the tools. With users spread out to different locations, working remotely with different needs, how do you manage these systems? And these systems require management. And so these are some of the core things you have to think of from a central administration aspect. You have to define the requirements of what the system needs to be. You have to implement the system. You have to provide training. You have to onboard users. You have to manage the user access. There has to be some case and issues management versus just random emails getting sent out. You have to monitor the usage of those users. You have to report on whatever the key metrics are that were important around it. You have to quantify the savings from it so someone can justify why we put this thing in the future, and someone probably wants to get credit for those savings. And then you have to expand and promote use, because if you don't expand and promote the usage, you'll get some departments using it, and then maybe it's not something that's reinforced for the future. It has to be like one of those things that's constantly monitored and expanded. Most of the time, you're not going to launch this across the entire company all at once. Most people are going to launch it within a specific group and then expand and then expand and expand. And that's the way we normally see it. But these things are key to any of these types of implementations to make sure that they get, they're successful and they can be tracked. Some best practices that you should consider is enterprise options should be used where possible to give you room to grow and expand. If you don't have enterprise options, you don't have the ability to control the users. You don't have the ability to see the reporting. It's just basically a bunch of standalone, platforms that are out there in specific places where no one has any visibility to it. Analysis needs to be done to justify these solutions, which involves getting the core data around the current applications. What are the mail volumes? What are the package spends? What are the savings areas? What are the problems? Someone has to look through those things to figure out and do those justifications. We're doing this for a lot of accounts, and they're amazed at what you sort of find when you dig under the covers to find out what the true issues are and what the actual savings can be. Support may be needed on implementing and promoting the use inside your organization. You may have teams inside, but sometimes third parties can do that in a more effective way. Ongoing support may be needed to administer the aspects of the system, first responders, user administration, reporting of activities, billing validation, making sure the system is being paid for and charged back effectively. These are the things that just make these systems successful or not successful. So in summary, more and more people are going to be working remotely in the future. I don't think anybody has any disagreements with that. This is the way, we have seen in 6 months just an evolution of what's possible. Like, where everyone was struggling for it, and everyone was sort of like running around with chickens with their heads cut off, trying to like figure out what to do with everyone working remote, to now it feels steady state. It seems like people are just used to it. Cloud-based tools are needed to support this. It's the only option. There's no way companies can say we're going to install something on every person's computer to fit the needs of this. It has to be in the cloud. PC postage tools provide a way to mail from anywhere with an internet connection and a printer. Multi-carrier tools are available. They can rate shop for the lowest cost carrier to send things. They can make it easy to make those decisions wherever you are. Enterprise versions are available to manage all users in a single platform. Larger mailings can be routed to on-site or off-site production facilities with the proper equipment and staff. No reason that you need to do these like one by one in a home office or a small office environment. Incoming digital mail solutions can move paper electronically to where it can be actioned quickly. And all of these solutions, we feel, create efficiencies and savings. So we do these types of webinars because we believe education is the forefront of, that makes it the forefront of like our principles. If these ideas make sense for an organization, they can be justified. Our services in many cases make sense for our clients. And if not, it doesn't. But the only way to know that is to do the due diligence, to sort of figure it out, to go through the details and find out what savings exist. With our clients, we've saved them over $66 million in sort of developing these same processes inside. This is average 1.9 million per client. Average savings for our clients has been 57% on the equipment side, which is one of our biggest areas. We're managing the largest fleet of mailing equipment and PC postage in the world of about 160,000 items. And we've also recovered about $18 million in overcharges for clients' lost postage vendor fees. Our team has 175 years of experience in this space, and we provide comprehensive web-based tools. So on top of the solutions that you see, we provide web-based dashboards that sort of pulls all these different spends together and makes it easy and visible to see what's happening. And then we manage these spends for our clients ongoing because we feel our clients typically don't have dedicated people to manage these systems, and they like the fact that we have the expertise and the resources to do this for them. Our clients are in every industry. We've worked with 8 of the top 15 banks, 3 of the top 10 insurance companies, 1 of the up 2 pharmacy chains. It frankly doesn't matter what industry it is. All that matters is they're large organizations with diverse sets of users and locations that need support. And our typical process for whatever we're doing is we sign some sort of letter of authority or limited agency agreement with our client, and we'll do a no-cost analysis of whatever segment that we're doing analysis for. And with that, we'll quantify for you what are the savings inside your platform. So with that, we'll ask for some copies of some invoices, maybe an export from your accounts payable system. And then potentially a population report from your vendors and of equipment. And we'll basically go through it. We'll reach out through the vendor web portals. We'll dive into the details of what you're spending, and we'll quantify what's out there, what are the savings available, and what solutions may make sense. We'll come to you with our findings, and this is at no cost or at no obligation. And if you decide to move forward, then we will submit the credit request, lost postage, avoidable fees. We'll negotiate pricing for you. So whether it's on equipment, whether it's on PC postage or any of the types of solutions that we looked at, we'll validate the equipment that you have in your locations. We'll do right sizing and terminations of things that aren't needed, and we'll provide full implementation of the savings. We present the everything to our clients for approval. We manage it in a web dashboard for them, and we provide ongoing support because people have things coming up. There are always issues and things that are coming up for our clients that they need help with. So we have another webinar, top 10 ways to optimize mail spends. It's going to be on November 12th. We hope you can make it. You can register through postaladvocate.com. And we constantly are running these types of webinars. We're probably doing anywhere between 6 to 12 a year in different topics that we think are going to save money. After that, usually in December, rates change with the Postal Service, and we typically do a webinar that goes over the changes that you can expect so you can plan for the budgeting on those. So we'll send an invite out to everybody who's on this webinar, so you'll have access to that if you're interested. So I want to open it up to any questions. Hopefully this was helpful and gave you sort of a sense of the technology and what's available out there. And we appreciate everyone coming to this session.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, so just a quick reminder in terms of how to ask your questions. You're all on mute right now, so if you do have a question, you can just put up your hand and I can unmute you so that you can ask your question. Or if you do have a question and you're not comfortable speaking, you can also type it in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer all questions. Any questions? Okay, I have one here. What kind of problems have you seen when moving forward with these types of solutions?
The biggest problems that we see is the coordination. It's trying to herd the users, herding cats. You have to make sure that, the technology is implemented, coordinated with, with all the groups that need to be for, that it's set up correctly. There's typically someone from compliance and IT that wants to be involved to make sure that the solutions are going to, pass muster and that there's not, sensitive information that is being transmitted that, people are uncomfortable with. And then it's really about setting up the launch plan effectively and then managing through those tactics. And what I mean by that is, some companies want to go full bore and they want to do everybody at once. But usually it's that we want to do some at one time and then have a launch schedule that's so it can be physically managed. And so it's managing through those aspects that are the most important part of making sure the system's successful.
Great, thanks. Another question, are we going to get a copy of this presentation? Yes, there will be a post-webinar email, and in that there will be a link to the presentation. You'll also be able to find this presentation through SlideShare or under FAQs on our website. Next question, what do we do if we're locked into leases with our current equipment, but we're working from home?
Sure. So the question of that comes is most organizations that we go to have sort of a fragmented lease schedule. So what that means is they'll have some leases that expire now and they have some equipment that expires in the future, and it sort of just needs to be managed through at the time. So what we try to do for our clients is, and you could do the same thing on yourself, is we manage that where we have a set schedule that, within like 120 days prior to end of lease, like there's communications out that we're reaching out to the site to give them options. Based on what they need, we're first going to see if there's equipment that's out there that's not being utilized at other facilities that could be moved. And so it could be better utilized internally before we go, request our client to buy new. So you could do the same thing. It's just understanding the full inventory of what's out there and making sure that it can be best utilized in those spaces that you need. Typically, the vendors aren't great at giving like early termination settlements that are any way beneficial for you. You end up paying the remaining balance of your lease if you try to terminate it early. So we try to get our clients to utilize them in some way, shape, or form where possible. But it's really about renewal management. There has to be a strategy around renewals where each one isn't looked at as a one-off, that there's a strategy of sort of managing the renewals of the portfolio.
Great. Another question. What kind of volume do we need to have per location to move from regular meter solution to a PC postage or cloud-based?
Sure. So from a postage perspective, where we see the sweet spot is we usually find, and every client sort of sets the bar. We have clients that have basically, I think our highest is we have about 1,800 licenses of PC postage linked together. And so some clients just say across the board, we're moving to this but most organizations will say about to a threshold. And they'll say anybody who does less than, and the threshold in most organizations is set somewhere between, $150 to $500 a month. That's where sort of we see most organizations sort of put that line in the sand. And they'll say anybody who does less than that moves to PC postage. And when you start doing more than those volumes, people like sealing functions and feeding functions that make it a little bit easier. But people who are doing less than that, don't seem to care. So it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue. If they have to peel a few stamps from a sheet, it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue. So it's somewhere between that $150 to $500 a month is usually where we see PC postage being used, with the exception of packages. If you're doing packages, packages, because of the savings that they generate and the fact that a package for like a priority mail package costs $7, the postage volumes might be a lot higher than that. Like, people would use PC postage, for, at much higher dollar values if the focal point was packages or certified mail.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming today. Hopefully this was informative, and hopefully we see you in some of our future sessions. So thank you again.